Hi, guys. Welcome to another edition of the Rooted Connections podcast. It's me again, Uju, with my girl.
Hi everyone, it's Pam. Welcome to the podcast.
So, how have you been?
Actually, I've been good this week. I know every week.
Ooh, for a
Every week, I
change.
know every week I always moan about how tired I am. But for a change, I think I've had quite a bit of rest this week. It's not
So,
been
you're good.
too. It's not been as hard.
My week's been all right, actually.
Yeah.
Just average.
You're a soft girl now.
I mean, I don't stress myself.
You're a soft girl.
I
I need to learn to be like you.
Yes,
Mm,
please,
yeah.
please, please.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
Very good. Anyway, welcome everyone. We've missed you.
We have indeed.
Yeah. And we have a very special guest today because we've been taking your feedback on board. I know a lot of people have reached out to us and said, it'll be nice for us to have a guest on the podcast. So we have taken your initiative and invited a very special guest with us today.
Indeed, indeed. So we listen. So please keep the feedback coming because we're going to take it all on board and hopefully deliver what you want us to
Yeah, we
deliver
listen,
for
we
you.
don't judge. It's because you said sorry.
We listen, we take action. Is that better? And we don't judge
We don't
actually.
judge. We don't
We don't
judge.
judge.
Yeah.
So guys, welcome Amaka to the podcast. Amaka, hey.
Hi guys, lovely to be here. Thank you.
Amaka, honestly, we're so happy to have you.
Are
Can't
you?
wait to hear all the nuggets you're going to drop today. Really looking forward to our conversation.
Indeed.
I'll try.
No, you can't try. We
You
know
more
we're
than try.
excited because we know what's coming. Yeah.
We know what you're capable of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Amaka, tell us a little bit about yourself.
How much time do you have? Anyway, I'll give you the abridged version. So my name is Amaka Asiodu. In my day job, I'm a psychiatrist, and in my night job, I practice something called aggressive self-care. Through my blog, Mind of Makus, which is published weekly, and I've tried to be consistent for most part of the last 2 years. I'm very
Wow.
proud of myself.
Wow.
Well
Yeah.
done. Well done.
So yeah, that's the abridged version.
Okay. So we'll go a little bit into that later in terms of why we've asked you to come on the podcast. But traditionally we like to do something on here as an icebreaker, which is explore a conversational card just to lighten up,
Yeah,
Good.
and it sort of gives people a brief insight into who we are.
Yeah.
So today's question, what beliefs would you want to pass on to your children or your grandchildren?
Beliefs that I want to pass on. I think I would like them to believe that they are inherently valuable and they belong wherever they go. That sense of I'm supposed to be here. I have something significant to contribute to the world, and my contribution is valuable. I think
Wow.
that's something I really want my generations unborn to know and
Wow.
carry with them.
Awesome. That's kind of key actually, because I think a lot of the struggles that a lot of us have, even me myself, is that understanding who you are, why you're here, purpose, and other people telling you don't fit in.
Yes.
That's the key thing, isn't it? And I think all of us, in one way or the other, have had to fight and push past that.
Yeah.
100%. I was thinking that as you were saying it, because it's almost like it takes you a while to come into yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you a while. And as much as we had, I would say we had beautiful parenting
Yeah.
within the context of what our parents could give us at the time.
Mhm.
But for many of us, that struggle of who are you started actually after we left home. So I think it's really important that we start to really help our children, especially because where we grew up, there was only one identity. You didn't have to figure out who you are because
Yeah.
everyone's pretty much the
Same.
same, if you know what I mean. But then you come to a society like this, I think for our children, it's a bit of a struggle. And I think one of our topics had been about this sort of identity crisis for our children in terms
Yeah.
of are they British or are they Nigerian or African? So sometimes it's like, where do they fall into?
Yeah.
So Yeah, thank you very much for that. That was beautiful.
You're welcome.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's that one is now very deep. We all are after because
Sorry, I got deep
yeah,
fast.
very, very deep because I was thinking very surface. Now I have to go and dig deep and find an answer. Pam, you go first. Let me think.
I don't know how to follow.
Well,
I
okay.
think we'll leave it there. I
Well,
don't.
Uh-uh.
I think because I don't know how to follow. Because to be honest, yeah, okay. I suppose the only thing I can add to that would be they don't lose themselves.
Mhm.
Um, maybe bringing it, linking it back to that Bible passage where it says that raise a child in the
In
way
the
of
way
the
of
Lord, so that
they
when the
grow.
time comes, yeah. And I think it's really important that when they are out of our, should I say, out of mind should not be out of sight, should not be out of mind,
yeah.
so that when we're not there to guide them,
Yeah.
everything that we've given to them, they don't forget. Because there'll be a time. And I think for us, we can relate. Because as much as we can look back and say, for some of us, talk about, oh, our childhood was very traumatic, our childhood was, I think to a large degree, I'm still grateful for that.
Oh, 100%.
Because it's helped me in a lot of situations where I can almost hear my mother's voice in my head
Yeah.
when I'm about to make some
Yeah.
mistakes. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think
That's true.
it's really important that they don't lose themselves in whatever situation they find themselves. That they stay true to those values that we've instilled in them.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, I think the answer I was going to say is something you've touched on as well, which is my faith.
Hmm.
Mm,
Because that for me is essential.
yeah,
Because regardless of who you become in terms of professionally or whatever, what's really important to is your faith at the
yeah,
end of the day.
Hmm.
For me personally, it anchors me.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
So if when I don't know what to do, when I'm trying to decide on something,
Hmm.
that is what anchors me. That is what centers me. So that is the
Hmm.
thing that I would most want to pass to my children. It will break my heart
oh
completely
yeah.
if they didn't follow it.
And you're saying I'm deep. That's so deep.
I'm
Like
telling you.
really.
No, and it's
That's so
true. It's
yeah.
true because I think that's a whole nother
It is because it
conversation.
will
But
completely
yeah,
break my
you're
heart
right.
if they went. Because when you ask the question, when we put out the question, I think that's how I started thinking about it.
Hmm.
What's the one thing that would absolutely break my heart if my children don't follow?
Mm,
Hmm.
And that's it.
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
I
Agree.
agree.
So you might have guessed what our topic is going to be today. It is, we're talking about self care,
Aggressive. Let me
particularly
let me
for
emph-
women.
let me emphasize on the aggressive
Aggressive.
self care.
So yeah, let's touch on that. We're going to start with so Amaka, define what is self care. When we say self care, what is it?
Ah.
I think actually, sorry to butt in there. I think before we Amaka answers that question, the reason why we've asked you on the podcast on this particular topic is just to give context. I think is important. Amaka is somebody that really and truly embodies self care
Aggressively.
aggressively. And to some degree, I'm very jealous of you
Hmm.
because there are a lot of things that I've never seen anybody that defines soft life like you. You're a soft life gay. So I think obviously it's come down to why you started Mind of Makus. I've followed
Yeah.
you from the beginning,
Yeah.
still following you, still have a lot of your nuggets that is helping to guide me. And I'm really grateful for that. So, sharing that with audience,
Hmm.
I think is really important. So yes,
100%.
just moving on from that, what Drew was asking, why,
No,
why,
what is it?
yeah,
Because some people, I think we all have different definitions of self care. So I think let's get everyone on the same page.
mm,
When we're talking self care, what is
what
it?
is it? What does it mean?
So, I'm thinking in my head like, oh my God, where do I start from? Because it ranges from, the very little things that you do every day to the very, very deep work that you do. But you can very practically define it as the things that you do that honor who you are in yourself as God made you. I'm a Christian, so a lot of my references will be quite Christian and biblical. And I believe that our bodies, these bodies that we carry,
Mm,
um, they are the house that holds our dreams. They are the house that holds all our aspirations. Our bodies are the houses that hold everything that God wants us to do in the world. And how we honor that vessel or how we honor that container is what we do as self-care. How we take care of ourselves and honor that body that carries everything that we're ever going to be. Because no matter what dreams and aspiration you have, if you don't have a prerequisite state of health and well-being, you're not going to achieve them.
100%.
And so that's the foundation behind what I conceive as self-care in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna now get a little bit more practical then. So you grew up in Nigeria.
Yes, I did.
So being Nigerian and being or an African woman in that context, what does self-care look like? Because and let's contrast that with because now you live in the UK, the
Yeah.
Western form of self-care.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Are there any synergies between the two?
What does it look like for an African woman? In the cultural context of Africa, African women take care of themselves. Like African women are the soft life people. It's just that, at the background of it, a lot of hard work that goes into it, isn't it?
That is true.
Because you learn how to enjoy yourself from watching the women around you. A lot of our education is observational. You probably watched, if you grew up in Africa, you probably watched your mom gather with her friends to cook food for birthday parties. You probably watch your mom go to parties with her friend every weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They're all, having the same, what they call it, ashwebi and all that. And for them, perhaps that was self-care in that context. You probably had your mom tell you to leave her room because she wanted alone time, even though it wasn't very practical because there probably wasn't enough room for everybody to have their separate rooms. But they try to enforce some boundaries with us that we did not understand. And for them, perhaps that was self-care in that context. Then coming to the UK, self-care is so different. It's so intentional. It involves a lot of organization and planning. It's not something that is part of family life. So what I think was happening when we were growing up in the Nigerian context was that self-care was part of community care.
Wow.
Cooking, partying, um, gathering together to clean the gutter, all those things were self-care, but as community care.
Okay.
But here, self-care is so individual as is reflective of the culture. People kind of are the lord and master of their own lives here. There's a lot more autonomy here. And so that filters into the culture of self-care. And that's another thing. Whatever you're doing has to be culturally appropriate. So when we come here, we try to copy what we see, which is fantastic. But you soon learn that your cultural context, where you're coming from, that has formed your sense of identity and who you are, is very different from what you're seeing here. So if you try to practice self-care the way it is done here, you can sometimes find yourself feeling stressed by it all because that is not what you're used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want me to keep going?
Keep going. So far, I understand what you say. So the wrong kind of or copying the wrong kind of self care in itself is
Yes.
stress.
Yes.
Is work.
Yeah.
Because your mind is not used to that.
Yes.
Because we grew up seeing that sort of community care,
Yes.
togetherness.
Yes.
So maybe practicing that type of self-care, might even lead to loneliness and depression.
Exactly. You start to cut yourself off from people because, oh my God, I'm finding it so stressful. I can't keep up. I just want to be on my own. That's my own self-care. And soon enough, the relationships that nourish you start to die because relationship need tending to. You're spending a lot of time alone just because you want to practice self-care. You can start to become quite lonely or have very superficial relationships because you're not spending the time and effort it takes to make them nourishing for you in your cultural context.
Okay.
So you have to find a middle ground somewhere in between that. And I think that has been my own journey. Just coming from where we do everything together. I'm always with my sisters, I'm always with my mom, I'm always with friends, to now being on my own and learning what it means to take care of myself on my own.
Yeah.
And then finding the middle ground now where you're now calling me a soft life queen.
Yeah. You found that balance. So we're all learning.
I know.
And that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
I think a follow-up question to that then will be for me is, for some people, you're almost forced into that sort of being intentional when you come here because we back home it was a community, I always talk about how I grew up in this environment where our parents were not really there because we're all looking after ourselves. And I think that's how most of us grew up. We can't do that now for our children because of how the world is now. But back then, parents go out in the morning, come back in the evening. They don't know what we've been up to the whole day, but they trust that we've been good because we almost all look after each other. You go out, you ride your bicycle, you play ten for, Suwe. I'm sorry, for context, these are some of the things that, as African, games outdoor games that we would play. And
Sway is what? Hopscotch?
Yes, hopscotch.
Hopscotch,
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah.
truly clean. Usually a broken roof plate or
Yeah,
something.
so
Yeah,
or seat.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
And so that was very fun. We used to
yeah.
do that, and it was I can actually see as a child how actually that was very soothing because we're all happy. You
Yeah.
go home, you're happy, you're satisfied. We
Yeah.
had really good friendships. And for some of us, those friendships have stayed
Yeah.
because of how we grew up, that community, that togetherness. But
Mm.
for some of us, then we go from that coming here.
Mhm.
And, let's even say you go to university,
Mm.
to a town where you don't know anybody there, you have no friends, you have nothing. So, how do you find that balance then? How do you do it?
There was something you mentioned that I don't agree with. You said we can't do that for our children. We can't have that kind of community life
Okay.
here. I don't agree with that. I just think that we're perhaps not spending enough time thinking about how to achieve it,
Do you think there's a fear factor
because
as well?
of course the world has changed,
Yeah.
but your small circle of people around you
Mm,
that can provide that level of security and comfort and support and social connection, you
mm.
have some control over it. And I have this big dream of one day living in a community like that in the UK. Because what's wrong with you planning with friends and family and you decide where everyone is going to buy a house, their next house? There's nothing wrong with that.
There isn't actually. And I
Yeah, you
think
can plan for it, say 5 years, 10 years. If you
that's
guys want to
true.
move, where do you want to move to? Where should we be thinking? Where are the good schools? That kind of thing. And you can actually, I believe strongly that you have some level of control over that. It's just that we don't give it enough thought.
That's
Okay.
deep actually. But I think Pamela, I think we've spoken about this actually, where I feel like when we think community,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us only think about Nigerians.
Mm-hmm.
And you sometimes don't realize the strength of the community you already have
Yes.
just because they don't look like you.
Mm.
So this whole you're saying somewhere you can leave your children to go and play and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we actually do have it, but
Yeah.
as you say, I think maybe it's the fear
Uh-huh.
or it just doesn't register that actually this is the community because we all look different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose I agree with you, and that's food for thought.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And to be fair, I do think that to some degree we are doing that without realizing. But I think because of how much the world has changed, there's now that the fear that our parents didn't have,
Mm-hmm.
we now okay, let me speak for myself personally. I'm so intentional about who my children are around now.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, I don't think our parents really
Give
thought
much
about
thought.
it. Do you understand? Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, they did do.
Say
They
well.
did and they didn't. I don't know how
No,
to
I
put
would
it.
say they did. I think you're lucky in the sense that your parents were in an area where they felt there weren't too many dodgy people.
I think
Go
because we
and
had
ask,
shared
Secure.
values.
not to say, but go and ask people that grew up in a rough area.
Yeah.
Well,
Do
Yeah.
you understand what
Their
I'm
parents
saying?
had very
Their
strict
parents were
rules.
very
Yeah.
were stricter
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
not difficult for you to encounter somebody that will derail you.
Yeah.
well, fair
You
enough.
get what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm thankful that I was sheltered in that respect, that the people around me
We're
generally,
safe
Yeah,
to
we're
some
safe.
to an
extent.
extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
why we didn't really see it.
And I suppose, like I said, we had shared values.
Mm-hmm.
So, as much as, yes, we'll all come out, we all, we're all family friends, even though we lived on a close,
Mm.
maybe 10 families, for example, and all the children. So when, we will all come out, even later when the parents come out, we all have, so it's like a massive community, but actually it was a small community as well within itself. So just feeding into what you were saying, I think you're right that, we're probably practicing it now with our closer friendship circles. And also with what Uju was saying, I think for many of us, there's also that fear of if the person doesn't look like me,
Mhm.
then I don't feel comfortable
Yeah.
interacting. So we need to be a bit more open-minded
Yeah.
about letting other people in,
Yeah.
right?
And that's a form of self-care too.
Mm,
Just allowing people to support you. A very important part of self-care is realizing that you don't have to do it all by yourself, and you can leverage on support, you can delegate, you can outsource, you can ask for help, and you can just reduce your standard. That's a form of self-care too.
You see, that's reduce your standards. I think I think it's something that we don't talk about enough, in the
mm,
sense that, and when they say reduce your standard, we're not saying just settle for any nonsense,
Mm-mm.
but it's the fact that you have to understand that maybe what I'm trying to attain for right now
it's not
is
realistic.
not practical.
Mm.
So let me think of something more practical to do,
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
and then still have, that as an ambition for, instead of a 1 year plan, okay, let's realistic, this is now a 10-year plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because you hear a lot of women that, they have burnouts, they have, they are struggling emotionally, mentally, because they're taking on so much to be able to meet certain needs that, to be honest, are they really important right now? I
Yeah.
guess that's what you're trying to say.
Yes, yes. And I think the example that readily comes to mind is around um, do you remember there was one meme that was going around one time? There was a woman that was cooking, doing homework with the kids, doing all that, all that. And, just thinking around that, that's the life of most professional women, because that's the cohort I'm most
100%.
familiar with. Those are the people that are my, close social circle. That's the life. That's the life we live. You're acing it at work, you're acing it in bed, you're acing it with the kids, you're knowing your children's school. Everything seems to be going all right. But the person herself who is doing all these things is just fried,
Yeah.
and is almost like a shell of a human being, like a robot, and there's really nothing left
Mm.
to give, so that the slightest pressure she cracks, and that's where you talk about burnout.
Burnout.
So in that situation now, what I would usually say is, think about all the things that you're doing. What's the most important thing? Then that's the thing you should dedicate most of yourself to. Then look at things that other people can do for you. I'll use myself as an example. In 2017, I had my first son, and I was trying to do all these things. I got into a very competitive training program. I was, trying to be a good wife, trying to be a good mom. And you know how it is when you're a new mom, you're so just anxious and you don't know what you're doing really. And one day I just thought about myself, that how do I really want to live my family life? And I wanted it to be fun.
Mhm.
I wanted my children to remember a fun mom. And
Mm.
I said, what does a fun mom do? She's relaxed. She's never hurried. She smiles. So, and I realized I wasn't doing those things. So, what I wanted in myself wasn't aligning with my reality.
Yeah.
So, I started to think, what are the things taking up my time? What's stressing me? And it can be as clinical as making lists, because I love lists. Lists allow you to see things objectively.
Mhm.
So, I made a list, this is who I want to be, this is who I am, this is how to get there. And I dropped some things. So things like cooking. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed feeding my family healthy, nutritious meals, like most moms would do. But I realized it was taking up my whole Saturday and even some parts of my Sunday, and I'm back to work on Monday. So when have I bonded with this child that I have? So
Mm.
I outsourced it. So I was still getting healthy, nutritious meals, but it didn't have to be me cooking it. And everybody was happy, including me, because I could be a fun mom.
You know,
Such a lesson to learn.
but you say that, right? And I think this is one of the questions that we have, and I think and this is the struggle that I feel like a lot of us are in this whole traditional setting.
Hmm.
Thankfully, you married a husband that is working with you on
Ah,
this.
Mm-hmm. Very
There are a
important.
lot of women who are in this traditional, somewhat
yeah.
stereotypical
Mm-hmm.
um marriage or relationship, where it's like, if you don't cook the food,
Mm-hmm.
the man is angry, or nobody can cook the food.
Yeah.
And because I think you touched on something very key where you said this societal or community self-care.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see it as self-care,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just saw it as your mom and her maid were working.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mindset a lot of men have
Yeah.
brought into marriage.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That the mom, as the mother, that you have to do everything, you have to cook, you have to clean, you have to do this, you have to. They forget that,
Mm-hmm.
the mom or the was her, your auntie was living with her, this, that, and the other
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So it was also a form of bonding.
Yeah.
So you're now in a country like this where it's just you and your
Mm.
husband, and he's still expecting you as an African woman to do all these things. How does a woman, or in your experience, have you dealt with women like this, and how have they navigated the situation?
It's really hard when you are with someone who doesn't see what you're saying.
Mm.
It's a lot of communication, it's a lot of thoughtfulness, it's a lot of consideration. And there was something I saw, if you was it last year, where they said the highest form of love is consideration. Someone who loves you will consider you. I think that's not something that is debatable. Yes, they want freshly cooked meals, which is fine. If that's a family value for you and you enjoy cooking, by all means go with it. That's only my example I gave
Of
you.
course, 100%.
There are some people who that's their thing. That's how they relax. That's how they bond. Them and their partners, they cook. But look at your life and look at another place where you don't have to be the one doing that thing. Perhaps it can be laundry. There are lots of families that outsource laundry and it saves them a lot of time.
Oh,
I
100%.
personally like doing the laundry. I love doing it. I like the smell of the clothes and all that nonsense. So, if that's your thing, and if you do have like a very traditional man, I imagine that was your choice as well as
Yeah,
his,
yeah.
So it's worth sitting down to say, okay, my love, in this our traditional family, this thing is important to you, this thing is important to me, this one in the middle, can someone else do it so that we can have more time for the lovey-dovey part of our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
which is really, really important because we cannot just be staff in a family.
Yeah.
We also have to remember that we're a couple and our
Mm.
relationship matters, and the
Mm.
way we treat each other in that relationship matters. Otherwise, you're just business partners in this business of family life, and you really don't want to be like that.
Mm.
Um,
That's oh wow. See what I said?
I've
I
never
don't even know.
actually
I'm
heard it
literally just
put that way. You can't be staff
yes.
in your
But it's and I love the fact that you talk about the importance of communication.
yeah.
Um but I think what makes coming here where people now actually realize that there's a void is back in Nigeria. I can only use Nigeria as a reference because I don't know what it's like in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Is that even when your husband is traditional in that way, where he says, "Oh, I can only eat the food that my wife cooks," outsourcing things is easier
Mhm,
because, like you said, you might have other family members. Very, very rarely do you find just a nuclear family. You will have an auntie, an uncle,
mhm,
somebody who is living there. Labor is cheap, so you have domestic staff, so at
mhm,
least they are cleaning, so you're not worrying about all of those things. So if it's just the food,
mhm,
it's fine. I can cook. But when you now come here, I've heard so many stories of marriages that have literally ended, that in their minds back in Nigeria, they were doing well. Do you understand? But then they've come here, and some men hold those values so deep that, if my wife doesn't cook, I don't cook. I'm a man. I don't cook. I don't do this. I don't do that. So both of us are going to work, both of us are coming back. I'm the one that tends to the children. I'm the one that we cook. I'm the one that we clean. I'm the one that we do etc. Your own is that you have gone to work, you have come back cross legged, waiting for me to serve you. So, how do you build that communication? Is it possible to have that mindset shift? If it is, in your view, how is
mhm.
it possible? Just give a bit of insight into how those kind of
Mindset
conversations. Yeah,
shift.
yeah, yeah.
It won't happen in one day.
Mhm.
But if you want it to happen, you have to start working on it. That's
Yeah.
my belief. The longer you put it away, the longer you procrastinate, the longer the journey is. I'm presuming that you plan to be married for 50 years, 60 years, you want to be happy. Anything that you don't sort now, it will still be waiting for you 10 years down the line, 15 years.
Mm.
So I'll rather, what I say is that I'll rather we start to work towards it now than later when, we are much older and it's much harder to learn new things. And having that attitude of learning in a partnership, in a family, is very important. Just kind of like how you learn at work. If you're given a new job, you don't go there thinking, I can do everything on this job.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Your partnership, your family life, it's a job. I consider it even a ministry. That's another podcast altogether. It's a job, and you should approach it with that same attitude of, oh my God, I don't know what to do. God help me. How should I, how should I be married to this woman? How should I be a mother or a father to this boy or to this girl? There's a lot of learning involved, and you need to humble yourself
Mm.
to be able to benefit from that partnership. So, for instance, your husband is saying, I don't like doing dishes. And you are saying you must do the dishes. That's not love again. There's something else underneath that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
must do it.
yeah,
There's something else. Because if it is love, and if it is, as I said earlier, if there's consideration in that
yeah, yeah.
relationship,
yeah.
it's a matter of, okay, you don't like doing the dishes. Can you explain to me why you don't like doing the dishes? Me, I'm a firstborn in my family. Dishes are not my thing. I do timetable, I cook. Last born does dishes. So I don't like doing dishes. So these are some of the things that we often don't talk about,
That is
but
true.
they form the part of who we present ourselves
Yeah.
in a marriage or in a family that
Yeah,
we are now
yeah.
starting. If somebody doesn't have that conversation with me, they won't know that I'm not used to doing dishes. I consider it beneath me.
You're very proud.
Like, it's a last born task. But
Wow.
that's the it's not, I'm not saying that it's true. I'm just saying that
Justice
that's the
for us last
mindset.
bonds.
That's what we
Oh.
mean by mindset.
Mindset.
But
Yeah.
when I got into a marriage and I realized that there's nobody else to do the dishes in this house. I
And you
had to
married a
have
last
the
born as well.
yes, I married a last born. So we had to have the conversation, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying, because I was forcing myself to do. I will not be angry. Sometimes a plate will break when I'm because my
Wow.
mind is not in.
Wow.
So we had to have the conversation
Mm.
about I don't like doing this shit, because I used to pile it up until last minute, hoping that he would do it. But he too, he wasn't used to doing it.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, we got a dishwasher. Problem solved. But that's what I mean by consideration.
Yeah.
Having those conversations are important, and don't hold it too strongly. You must do this, you must do that, because that means there's another issue underneath it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And that
that's a
issue needs to be
separate.
addressed.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
need to talk
Yeah.
about
So we
it.
have to go on the premise then that
Yeah.
this is a marriage of where two people
Consideration.
consider each other
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
and are open to having the
Yeah.
discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because the other issue that you said, there's more to, so let's pack. Let's pack it.
Okay, we'll pack many things to the side.
That was another podcast discussion.
Comment section, please be nice. Firstborn, how we are. We do a lot for
I'm
you
a
guys.
firstborn, oh. I'm a
We
firstborn.
do a lot for you guys, so please be merciful.
I'm outnumbered today. Firstborns versus wow. I didn't wash plates like that, Sha. I was lucky.
I have to say that I actually enjoy. I know it sounds crazy. I actually enjoy. It's very
Washing
therapeutic.
plates.
It's very I find it very therapeutic. But anyway, that's by
It's
the
all
by.
right.
I love kitchen sinks. Strangely enough,
Okay.
You cook, you like
I love to
cooking.
cook.
Yeah, that's
I
your
love to
thing.
cook.
That's
so it's
your
my
happy
yeah.
place.
So it makes me.
Yeah.
It makes, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
That's
I
your
don't.
self-care.
I don't see
Yeah.
outsourcing. Do you know? I actually feel very bad
Mm.
when I have to out. I can outsource anything else in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Cleaning.
So it's not your thing.
Yeah, but you see, cooking. It's hard.
Yeah, you
Because
love
I just
it.
love. I love to cook.
In fact, I have food to collect from her today. So,
But
everybody has their strengths.
But you say that I feel bad, and I think that's the point of the conversation that
Yeah.
we're having
Yeah.
today. That
I-
you shouldn't feel bad
Yes.
when you cannot do something.
That's no more
and
self-care.
that's the
That's what I
shift.
mean. It's
Yeah.
no
And
longer
that's the
self-care.
shift that I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not even coming from the partner. The pressure is not coming from the partner.
Yeah.
We put that pressure on ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Where the husband has not said to you, if you don't cook for me, some men, they will not, I think, because the reality is, you're not blind. We both come here, we're both hustling together, right? So you can clearly see that there's no house help, there's nobody washing for us, so everyone's doing what they need to do.
Yeah,
So
makes
some
sense.
men might even say, I've had situations where the man will say, oh, don't worry, I'll make myself noodles.
Yeah.
How can my husband?
That's you. I
Yeah.
failed as a
Can my
woman.
husband eat noodles?
You
He
have
don't-
failed in life.
Oh my
I go
God.
and make
People
you
like me, I'll say,
afang
please
soup.
make two. Make two.
I'll go and make you afang soup. Don't worry. And you finish making that afang soup at 1 a.m. The man has gone to sleep.
And you're going to work the next day.
6 o'clock. You're waking up.
But the point you made as well is quite important, because for a lot of men, if it comes down to it, if you give them, as long as you're not giving them indomie or bread, as long as you're giving them proper meals,
Yeah.
they're not bothered where it came from.
Even if they have to eat that indomie.
I'm just saying that even if, let's look at it that
That's the majority, because people
yeah.
genuinely love their partners.
Yeah.
Most people do.
Yeah.
It's just that we hear about the the aberrant, the what will I call it now? What's the word of something that's out of the norm? The
Mm.
abnormal ones, just because they make so much sensational news and
Sure.
bad news travels fast. But I think most people actually consider their partners when
Yeah.
in these day-to-day
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
I think communication is really is
Mm.
because if I don't know that you're struggling, if you're because someone like me, I don't really complain, but you find that resentment is building
Mhm.
because
Hmm.
So that's now there's
can't
a
you
need
see
for
me?
self-care. You see, so
Mm.
that's where when you start to feel that resentment and that inner it's almost like something is shaking you up inside and you're boiling
Yeah.
slowly. You realize that you're not honoring your needs. You see, that's why I
Mm,
define self-care as honoring your
your
needs.
Yourself.
need,
You
Yeah.
know,
yeah.
when you're not honoring your needs, or you have brought yourself down to a point where you're not honoring your core values anymore, you
Mm,
start to feel that dis-ease within
mm,
yourself. And then you know that, there's something that needs adjusting here. So we start to talk about things like boundaries, things like inner healing. Maybe the person has triggered your childhood hurt. Maybe the person has said something that somebody
Amaka,
said to you in primary
we not ask you
six,
to come and
you know.
be
You know,
digging things.
no, but all this is
No,
part of
but it's true.
self-care. It's not
Yeah,
just
yeah,
all
yeah.
about
You're
spas
absolutely
and
right.
manicures, and that's just the superficial bits that just
It
puts
goes
plaster
deep.
on
It
cancer.
goes deep. Yeah.
Deep down, the real self-care work is very dirty, and people
Mm.
people find it exhausting. The people that are doing the actual real work find it very exhausting. It sometimes involves therapists.
Do you know, I was just about to ask you that question about the importance of therapy. Because a lot of us from I think generally I think there's a shift from it now, I think, but it's people are still coming around to the idea. So
Mm,
what is your take on therapy and why do you think it's important? Because I know it's something you do.
And
mm,
mental health in general,
Yeah.
I would
mm,
say managing your mental health and therapy being one of the tools to manage your mental health. Why is
Mm,
that really important?
mm. It's important to manage your mental health just because of all the things you said. Because God has invested so much in you. There's so much that you need to do, that He needs to tell you to do. Your mental health needs to be balanced to be able to do those things. All the big dreams that you have, if you just create small like this, so, as much as possible, prevent yourself from a breakdown.
Yeah.
Now, what does therapy have to do with that? Not everyone needs therapy,
Mm.
but I consider it, as you say, one of the tools that we need sometimes to keep us well, because we will all have difficulties in life. There's nobody who doesn't have difficulties in their life. And sometimes these life transitions or these changes that happen in our lives can destabilize us quite
mm,
significantly. Some people will say, oh, that was the trigger for a breakdown. The one thing that is the camel that breaks
The straw that
the straw
breaks
that breaks the
the camel's
camel's
back.
back.
Yeah.
So what therapy does is that in those situations where you're feeling quite stressed by something, or you're feeling really anxious about something, it just eases it so that you can talk about it rather than ruminating about it in your head.
Mm-hmm.
It provides a safe place, almost like a comforting, supporting friend that is paid to be there for 1 hour and to give you all the skills that they've probably spent decades gathering
Mm.
to be able to negotiate this your problem, this your small problem that is
Mm.
one out of 1 million things that will happen to you in life, so that you successfully navigate it.
right.
Some it's like a very experienced captain
Mm,
in your small ship,
Mm.
you
okay.
know.
So then, for because paid therapy is expensive.
Mm,
Let's be honest.
yeah.
And what you find that many people actually want to access therapy but can't afford to. So what are the alternatives if in the event that this is not something that is financially viable at the moment?
Mm,
What are the other tools that people can practice? And I know we're specifically talking about women, but I
mm,
think in a way this is something that can be for everybody to
mm,
learn something from. So what are the other tools that people can hone in on if therapy is not a practical tool for them for whatever reason?
mm. So you're assuming that this is someone that wants to do therapy, because a lot of
Yes.
people don't
Oh
want to
yeah,
do
yeah, yeah. So I
therapy.
think that was it.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. We'll come
Just
back to the
hold
why
on to that
people.
thought.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
hold on to that.
So
But yeah,
someone who wants it but cannot
but can you
afford it.
access it? Yes.
There are other ways. There are skills you can pick up, low grade skills through your GP, through your local psychological services. There's counseling that you can get free of charge. There are charities that provide counseling and therapy support
Mm,
online. Off the top of my head, there's a Black women's mental health charity called Maternity Engagement Action. They help women who have just had babies or women who are pregnant to support them through that period of life change. And
Wow.
they provided a 6 weeks free therapy course for me 3 years ago when I had my baby.
Oh
Free
wow.
of charge. It was
Wow.
very intensive, very supportive. It was amazing. So there are charities that do this kind of amazing work at the
Wow.
grassroots level where you don't even have to go to your GP or anything. You literally go
Wow.
to their website and apply. Um, so there's that. But there's also things like just having your daily practice of taking care of yourself,
Mm.
honoring yourself, sleeping well, the foundations of your health, good sleep, good food, spending time outdoors, moving your body. Those four things, as in, they really, really set you up for having
Yeah.
to, or for dealing with life's challenges
Yeah.
as they come,
Mm.
because then you have a good foundation already. You're eating well, you're sleeping well. If anything comes, you have some flexibility, almost like an elastic band. You can
Mm.
bounce back.
Mhm.
But if your elastic is already stretched and stretched and stretched, and you're using every sleeping 2 hours, eating a lot of junk food, spending time in front of the computer all day, you don't have supportive relationships in your life, any small stress, what's gonna happen? You snap.
Oh, when you said the
Is it pinching you?
when you said being in front of your computer all day, I'm
Is it
like,
pinching you?
why?
Yeah. So
Stop it.
it's those, it's those kind of small things. So
Mm.
if you're going to eat lunch at work, this is something that I've practiced myself. Work is busy. Nobody's ever going to tell you, oh, you've worked enough, you need to
Now
go
stop
out
now.
now. No. So if you're going to have a break outside. Eat your lunch outside, or eat inside, leave 10 minutes, go outside for that 10 minutes, just walk around wherever your office is, the car park, whatever, get some fresh air. Those are small acts of self-care you can do. Now, if you're somebody who is really anxious, and anxiety is part of life, you're somebody who is really anxious, you're going for a meeting, you have an exam, you have something that is coming up that is making you a bit shaky. There's something called distress tolerance skills that you can pick up. So it's things like, holding ice in your hand, splashing your face with cold water. It resets your autonomic nervous system
Oh
and just
wow.
relaxes you immediately.
I feel
Some
like I
people,
needed pen and paper for this.
Like,
sorry, I've entered teacher
I'm
mode.
telling
please
you.
go ahead. That's what you're
Going.
here for. Please go ahead.
Sorry about that.
Ice in your
Don't
hands,
be
Yeah.
sorry. Don't be sorry.
splashing
Keep going.
water.
Put water on your face. Some
That's
people
it.
do jumping jacks just in your office there before the meeting. Do quick jumping jacks.
Some people that don't like
It's
jumping
yeah,
jacks.
if you don't like that, people like breathing exercises. It works for some people. But I know that some people find it difficult. That whole follow the breath into your nose, down into your chest. Some people don't cannot stay for that. So if you're somebody who is actually a very active person, these are other things that you can do. If you
Mhm.
Google it, distress tolerance skills, there are lots of them. You can pick the one that works for you and start to build that into your life so that that's your in your toolbox.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've learned more than a thing or two
Yeah, I wish
today.
more people knew these things because they're actually
Honestly.
online. Spending time watching
Honestly.
TikTok videos, and we should be learning all
No,
this kind
but
of
to be honest, I wouldn't even have known that it was something to,
Yeah.
to look for. So
Scientific. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what,
yeah.
our hope with doing this, this
Yeah.
podcast is to, get this kind of conversations going so that people can actually
No,
learn and
and
pick up.
educate themselves. Absolutely. One of the things I actually find that helps me as well, or in certain times in my life, is journaling.
Hmm.
Mm,
I find journaling very therapeutic
Hmm.
because there are some thoughts I can't share
Hmm.
or don't want to share at that moment in time.
mm,
Even with therapy, I just feel like I need to get it out. And I don't know whether there's again any kind of science to it, but a lot of people swear by journaling
yeah.
Hmm.
because it's just one of those things that you don't even know how much you have in your head that needs to come out. And it's almost like there's this relief when you have when you have written things down and you can look back on it, reflect, and
Hmm.
then it now almost gives you insight into what next steps should be.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I don't know your thoughts. What do you think about that?
I think journaling is a good practice if you can be settled enough to do it. I've tried it a few times. I found it useful, but I
Mm.
struggle with sustaining it over time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
find that I do it like when I'm in a crisis,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then after a while, I just like, oh, fine,
I
I'm
think
all
that's
right
but
now,
I
and you throw
always
it
do
to
it
the
when
side.
I always do it when I'm in a crisis. To be honest.
You throw it to the side. But well, in a crisis is a really good way to decongest your mind. Is a
Yeah.
really good practice for how at the end of the day, 4:30, you just realize, oh my God, still have 16s on my to-do list. Is that's a form of journaling as well. It's a good way to just end things and
Mm.
put it there, and I'll pick it up tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there was one time there was something that was pasted in our office. I work within the NHS, so they said something about, if you haven't finished your task, take a piece of paper, write it down, leave it on your desk, go home to your family. I found that thing so useful,
Mm.
because otherwise you carry all these things in your head. Somebody has offended you, it's in your head. So yeah, the bean man didn't come on time, it's in your head. The
Mm.
children's school uniform is not washed, it's in
It's
your
in your
head.
head. Yeah.
The car needs fuel, it's in your head. But if you put them down, all these things that have happened, the things that are to happen in the future, it really helps your brain to focus on the more the things that are present. It helps you to be present, is what I'll say.
Yeah.
So if it's bedtime, you can sleep. If it's homework time, you can do the homework rather than thinking about all the other things that haven't happened and will happen. Yeah.
100%. What I particularly find, Jenny, like you, I have struggled to sustain it, um, to the way that I would like to. But
Mm.
what I found useful with it is you don't realize maybe sometimes how angry you are.
Mm.
You don't
Mm.
realize just how much
Needs to.
you're carrying until you no holds barred write it down like you're talking to. When you now read it, you're like, thank God I didn't talk to this person right now, because what I will have said would,
Yeah.
would not be positive, would not be useful.
Yeah.
So that's what I've found writing things down anyway.
Mm.
Before, so I get is how would I say, it's refining what is inside
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
You touched on something which was, you were like, instead of spending time on TikTok. So let's go there. What has social media done in, or what impact is social media having, in your opinion, on
Mm.
our mental health and our ability to even practice this self-care?
Mm. Social media is such a gift. Like I was saying on our way here, that all the technological advances of the last 20 years has probably caught up with like 300 years of technological advance before.
Mm.
It's such a gift because we'll probably not even be here now without it. It has its advantages. Now, the impact on the way we communicate, it has changed. The way we practice self-care has changed as well, because now that comparison factor has
Yeah.
come into our practice of self-care. For instance, my mom never knew what somebody in Singapore was doing for self-care.
Mm. That's
All of
true.
a sudden now, I know what somebody in New
Yeah.
York is, that they do go somewhere and
Mm.
have goat yoga, and all these funny, things that happen
Good
across
yoga.
the world, and you start to aspire to these things. And
Mm.
sometimes, there's danger in that as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
that there's a lot of discontent,
Mm.
and that's one thing. Another thing is the fact that we are always switched on. We don't really get a chance to just breathe and
Yeah.
do nothing,
Yeah.
because in your doing nothing, you're on your phone.
Mm.
You say, I'm resting, I just want to rest, but you're on your phone. You're
Mm.
looking at this person in Singapore, this person in Australia, and your
Mm.
brain is taking in that information. Your brain is working. Your brain is
Mm.
working. The fact that we don't, for me, the fact that, it increases that discontent with our current realities,
Mhm.
and it doesn't give us time to just be present
Mm.
in the moment.
Mhm.
Those are the two main things I think that it hasn't really served us well with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Do you know what? We can have this conversation for hours,
Yes.
for hours, because there's so much to unpack about it. But I think on a final note, then, and thank you again so much for all the nuggets you've dropped. I
As
knew it was going to be a
in,
special episode.
as
The time
in,
has gone so quickly
I know
too.
it has, but as I said, there's so much to say. What would just be your final, should I say, advice to anyone that's really struggling to, I won't say the word kind to yourself, because I think that's
Mm,
just it. A lot of us struggle to be kind to ourselves.
mm,
Uh, You know, I can maybe use myself as an example. I think I find kindness a form of self care.
mm,
Looking after other people for me makes me happy,
mm,
but I don't accord myself the same respect.
mm,
I'm very happy to be there for people, but I almost do not feel like, sometimes I almost feel like I don't deserve that kindness.
yeah.
So, what advice would you give for people like me, for example? I mean, something I'm definitely working on, and I can say I'm
Mm,
making a lot of progress, but it's a journey. So, what would you say to help people that really struggle to really prioritize themselves in that way?
mm. I think if it's a struggle and you're sincere to yourself that it is a struggle, then you're halfway there,
mm,
because, a lot of people don't know that it is a struggle. Like they don't know that they don't love themselves. That self-compassion is important. And to that, I'll say fake it until you make it, because we fake it until we make it in so many areas of life. Why not in loving ourselves?
Mm.
You know, talk to yourself in the mirror if you have to. I don't do that, but it works for some people. Treat yourself with the same kindness that you would treat a best friend, even if you have to remind yourself and have it written on your wall somewhere to say, treat yourself, or Pamela, treat yourself the way you would treat your best friend today. Right?
Mm.
Fake it until you make it. That's what I mean. The practical everyday things, challenge yourself. If you feel like you're already tired in your mind, you're like, my back is paining me, but you're still hanging the laundry. At that point in time, stop and say, what would you tell your best friend to do right now if she was one in your position? Ask yourself and then do it. So that's what I mean by fake it until you make it. I'm not saying do toxic positivity, it doesn't help anyone, but those practical everyday things that you can do to check yourself, try. Ask a friend to hold you accountable. Set alarms on your phone to remind you to go out for a walk or to eat nutritious food. Do your shopping list. Chat GPT can help you to do healthy meal plans, for weeks on end. You know, take care of yourself. Treat yourself with respect. Treat yourself with honor. Uphold your boundaries. Live according to your core values. And if you don't know them, there are lots of values exercises online. Online is useful for lots of good things. Google how to find out my core values. Those are some of the small things that you can start with. It's in the everyday practice. It's not in the spa. Please don't look at somebody in Singapore that is spending the time eating $20 burgers. You just do what is okay for you in your cultural context, your financial context, your current realities. It is a journey. It's taking me a long time to get here, and I'm still not done. I'm still struggling sometimes, as you
Self-life
heard.
girl.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
thank
That's
you so
been
much.
amazing.
Mm.
So, guys, you've heard she has a blog, Mind of Makus. We're going to put the link in the description.
Yep.
For more nuggets like this, please visit her blog. Show her some love because honestly, she has more where this came from.
A lot more.
Amaka, thank you so much for being
Thank
with
you
us
for having
today.
me. So
Yay, thank
grateful.
you. It's been fun.
It has. It really has. And you know what? You're, I think, our first guest on the
Oh
podcast.
my
So it's
God.
an honor to have you. Thank you
Oh,
so much
thank
for
you.
this wonderful episode.
Thank you.
And we'll be bringing her back. Trust me, because
Ah,
there's a lot more where that came from.
you don't have a choice.
Okay.
And see how she just accepted. I love it. I love it. So until the next one, bye
Bye. And
guys.
don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us.
And share,
And
share,
share.
share,
Share.
share.
Absolutely.
Important.
Thank you guys.
Bye everyone.